As Claire was proclaiming that reading from the prophet Isaiah, for a brief moment I found myself being back at the wonderful sensational senior Christmas luncheon we had on Thursday. The reason was because when we old folks get together, what do we talk about? We talk about our hips, our aches and our pains, our shoulders and our knees, and we talk about our hearing and our eyesight. So it sounded exactly like the Isaiah reading. The same thing happens when I visit some of our priests at Regina Clary, which is our retirement home. What do we do when we get old? We talk about what's not working right. I don't know whether it's because it's mentioned 4 times in the second reading, or at this time of year when we celebrate the Sacrament of Reconciliation, probably it's in the top 5 of sins confessed, or because simply we're not very good at it, nor do we like doing it. But even though this weekend the focus is to rejoice, gaudete, I chose the word for our focus to be the word patience for this weekend. Let's face it, very few of us practice it very well, do we? I think one of the reasons is simply because we've become so accustomed to having our needs and our wants immediately taken care of that we just don't like to wait. Hence the impatience. Quick confession, how many of you switch lines at a checkout just because you think the one's shorter? Come on, yeah, own up to it. We're always jockeying for positions, aren't we? I happened to do a little shopping on Friday, and while I was waiting at Kohl's to be checked out, I was entertained by the woman behind me who let it be known she just didn't understand why they didn't have more checkers out at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. That's a busy time. She was not a happy camper. So whether it's waiting for a red light, waiting for your server to come to your table, waiting for test results, we just don't like to wait. And hence we become impatient. At the same time, when you can practice patience, it does mess with people. On that same Friday, I was in Deerbergs, you know, the infamous potato chip aisle. So I was there, and there was a woman, and she had her cart, and she was just sort of there in the aisle trying to get some potato chips, deciding what she wanted, and I was just standing back off of her shoulder, just standing still. And then she saw me, and I think either got self-conscious and or embarrassed that my way was blocked, although I never asked to move by. I think that just sort of unnerved her that somebody was just standing there patiently. We're not used to it, are we? If any of you are wordsmiths, I think to understand a little bit about the background of the word patience might help us with trying to live out this virtue of patience. It comes from a Latin word, patior, and there's a lot of nuances to its meaning, but a number of them deal with surrendering. So one meaning of the word patior is to allow or to permit. So if you think about it, someone who is patient allows or surrenders to someone else or something else. And they are willing to do that. And the one thing about patience, it's not something passive. But to be patient really means surrendering. This is not in my control. That's why the great image was of the farmer today. Now, those are folks who are certainly at the whim of weather, drought, sun, drench, tariffs. They're always, and so they have to be practicing patience because it is about surrendering, allowing until it happens. Another definition of the word patior is to suffer. And if you think about it, what do we call the residents of a hospital or the clients of a doctor? They are patients. You know, and part of it is, I don't know about you, but when I've experienced sickness, when I've experienced being hospitalized, there is a lot of surrendering and letting go that goes on. You know, you surrender to what has to be done. You might not be able to do what you used to do, hence why we talk about hips and arms and shoulders. But there's this surrendering that occurs as you suffer. And it doesn't mean you don't do your rest, you don't follow a treatment plan, but ultimately you have to wait for something to take its course. And part of it is, how do I approach that? Am I willing to surrender to it? Interesting, that same word patior is at the root for these words: compassion, empathy, and sympathy. As I said, this time of year with penance services, it's an often confessed sin is impatience. And in the brief moment that I have to talk with a penitent, I ask him to do a little thinking on this area. And the area is expectations, because I believe patience, impatience, and expectations are tied together. How oftentimes when I find myself impatient is because something didn't happen as I expected it to, or as quickly as I wanted it to. And so when I talk to the penitent about wanting to change some thoughts about how to approach things, I ask them to ask themselves 3 questions. Are my expectations realistic? Are they achievable? And have they been communicated? Because sometimes that's where we find ourselves being frustrated. What I am expecting of someone, I'm expecting of myself, just can't be done realistically. Have I communicated it well to someone? And then when they do those questions, I ask them to do one more. Am I willing to accept the other? Am I willing to accept myself as I am? Which becomes a type of surrender to that, also something beyond me. And so, my friends, on this Gaudete, Rejoice Sunday, I ask you to think about patience. What do you need with it? How do you make it work a little bit better in your life? Do you ever pray for the grace of patience? By the way, dear God, give me patience and give it to me now is not counting. But more importantly, am I willing to surrender to this mystery we are about to celebrate? And part of it means, am I willing to wait? To wait, to be opened up to the God who loves me and the God who becomes incarnate in my life.